The school grounds of Merewether High and Newcastle have been transformed into a tent city. 45 tents are being pitched to cater for 600 boys aged from 12 to 18. The Boys Brigade is a youth group similar to the Scouts, following Christian values. Every 3 years a 12-day camp is organised, and this year it's Newcastle's turn. Beside the hundreds of young people under canvas, the camp also means a tremendous financial boost for the city.
We estimate about $500,000 will be spent locally in the area.
Last week, Newcastle missed out on a national caravan convention, a loss of around $1 million in spending. Each day, groups from the Boys Brigade will tour the city and will run fitness and sporting activities at the Merewether base. It opens officially on Sunday. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
A clear sky is the signal for pleasure craft and holiday makers to take to the water in droves. This year the numbers have swelled, meaning all hands on deck for rescue units like the Port Stephens Coastal Patrol.
Normally through the year, to give an example, we do 5 to 10 sheets of log, and at this time of the year we're going from anywhere between 20 and 30 sheets. So that'll give you an idea of the amount of work that's going on in the radio base.
Water Police, the MSB and the Coast Guard have also been kept busy. Over the weekend, 250 calls from vessels were reported. Yesterday, a 23-foot launch was washed onto oyster racks at Garden Island. Earlier today, an 8-year-old girl and her father were rescued after their runabout broke down on Tilligary Creek near Tanilba Bay. On Lake Macquarie, Water Police have had to deal with numerous speed and alcohol-related incidents. Despite the offences, authorities agree that the majority of boat users are responsible, with the emphasis on safety. Coastal Patrol says public awareness is taking effect. So far this year, twice as many boats have been reported on the waterways, but as yet, there's been no increase in accidents.
We find it's very encouraging, the attitude of the boaties this time of the year.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Before the hunter's coal is loaded onto ships and taken through the heads, it's analysed in laboratories like this one in Carrington. But it's been a drawn-out process. Only 6 samples a day were being analysed at Coal and Allied's laboratory. Now, with the introduction of this computer, the first of its type in Australia, the lab can handle a daily load of 50 samples.
Rapidly reduces our analysing time and helps to cut our operating costs.
The analyser identifies levels of carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen in the coal to test the quality of the material before it's mined and to make sure it meets the requirements of customers.
Carbon and hydrogen are important for describing the rank of the coal, and nitrogen is an important environmental element. They do release an acidic emission which can harm the environment.
The escaping gas was discovered by a resident walking his dog along Burwood Beach when he saw bubbles on a rock platform. Ever since sludge began being pumped into old mine shafts 6 months ago, controversy has constantly surfaced over the project, but this latest incident has shut down the secondary treatment plant.
This is an unexpected development, and the monitoring committee have been looking at the latest information. They've advised us to proceed cautiously, and that means stop putting sludge down the mine until we can have a better look at things.
While methane can be explosive, Mr Phillis asserts there's no danger to the public.
No, we don't believe there's any risk at the moment. That's why we've stopped immediately. At the moment the gas escapes right down near the water's edge, and we're very confident that there's no risk at all to the public.
Before the sludge dumping began, both the residents and a consultant's report expressed concerns that the gas could seep its way through the rock strata to the surface. The residents say those fears have now become reality.
We're horrified that because of their dump it in a hole and let's hope we can forget it mentality, we've now got to dump it back in the ocean. When are they going to get real and wake up to the fact that you have to recycle the sludge?
The project's Monitoring Review Committee will be trying to work out what's caused the leak before it meets again in January. Until at least then, the new works will be shut and sewage will receive only primary treatment before being pumped out to sea. Hunter Water is confident, however, that won't mean a return to pollution problems of old for an increasingly popular coastline. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
A perfect night to start the new year, and the Breakers went right on the attack. Olympic counter-attacked, and in the 5th minute, striker Zlatko Arambasic sliced between the defence to score. The Breakers rallied. Neat work from Warren Spink, unlucky to pay dividends. Skipper Andy Koska was the first to feel the frustration of Olympic's informed keeper Clint Gosling. The loose ball strayed by Spink. While Gosling was outstanding, his teammates faltered. In the 29th minute, Spink's woes continued. Referee Rob Davies ruled this chance a deliberate handball. As the Olympic attack tripped over opportunities, Gosling was rock solid, a magic save preventing Jason Pollack from scoring. And then the breakthrough, Warren Spink scoring the equaliser. The 1-1 result gave the team its first ever point against Olympic.
The 4 holiday makers from Seven Hills in Sydney were cruising on the Tuggerah Lakes in their 14-foot aluminium boat. Near Chittaway Bay, all 4 stood up at the same time and the vessel capsized. At first, police were concerned that a number of them might be trapped under the boat, but after some tense moments, the 4 were reported to be clutching to the vessel.
They got them all in that boat there, they're all okay, so the ambos just check them out.
While one man waded ashore, 2 others were airlifted by rescue helicopter. The 4th member, a woman, was helped ashore but then collapsed. After being treated at the scene for shock, she was taken to Gosford Hospital for observation. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
With more than $8,000 prize money on offer, it was worth rattling the New Year's hangover. And rattle they did. More than 80 of the region's top riders, male and female, converged on Wauchope Showground for the first night of competition. It was the first time in more than 40 years Wauchope hosted a rodeo, and it roped in the crowds. There was even time for some clowning around and a bit of monkey business. The bull ride provided the most excitement. Peter Gill finished the night ahead on points. His cousin Justin leads the bareback section.
They're known to their owners as the horsepower of the 21st century, and they've come together for the New South Wales Draft Horse Ploughing and Novice Ploughing Championships near Taree. The Australian Draft Horse and Studbook Society focuses on the Dinky Dye Draft Horse, a mixture of the breeds such as the Clydesdales, Shire horses and Percherons, brought out by early settlers to tame the land. The Society has developed its own set of standards for the breed and holds regular field days concentrating on form, shape and caring for the horses. Some teams are harnessed in the rigs used around the area years ago. Bakers, carts, drays, seeders, reapers and sulkies were once hauled by docile workhorses owned by local farming families. Others have come from all over the state. It's not just for show. Some of these horses still put in an honest day's work on the farm. Tomorrow, though, you'll be able to see them plodding on their patient ways in a series of competitive events.
A home video recorder captured the devastation of the Killingworth substation, hit hard by the force of the quake. Electrical cables that carry more than 3,000 volts lay scattered on the ground. Switches fell like dominoes. Pacific Power ordered a major overhaul. The $1.5 million project involved design changes to ensure that the site will be less susceptible to damage in the event of another quake. A new tripping device was installed on the transformers, changes were made to the high voltage switches, and the electrical connections have been extended.
The Pacific Power has had to examine those design criteria for new sites and to examine methods of installing their equipment so it's less susceptible to earthquake activity.
Substation engineer Pat Duncan says 16% of the state's power supply was lost during the quake, the first major blackout in Australia. Pacific Power's designs are based on studies from Japan and the United States. The technology will be implemented at all new sites as well as existing substations, leading the way in technology.
They are certainly at the forefront of technology in Australia because Australia is really new to earthquakes. It's probably something that overseas have been doing for quite some time, but certainly within Australia it's all new and at the forefront.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. Environmental issues have plagued Lake Macquarie City Council for decades. Greenpoint, Wangi Road, Toronto wetlands and the general protection of the lake are just a few. The move to create an environmental consultative committee is not new. Past attempts by both council and concerned groups have failed. A preliminary meeting was held with groups like Urge, Jules Wetlands Trust, the Dudley Progress Association and Wangi Point Committee. A public meeting early next month will invite other groups to have their say on a committee with a direct link to council.
But the important thing is it will provide the opportunity for the council to be better informed as to how the community itself is thinking on these matters.
Peter Morris, representing Urge and the Greenpoint Action Committee, says he's optimistic.
I see this committee as being the opening of a door that we can establish a new communication with council's professional staff. And the other thing is that I see that perhaps attendance at the committee could be on a casual basis where people who do have an issue, who have a concern, can come along.
Heading the list of environmental concerns is Lake Macquarie's waterways. In an attempt to preserve them, the council is planning to fund a number of research projects. Backed by a funding commitment of nearly $40,000, the studies looking into areas like the lake's sedimentation and wetland ecology will be used to help council develop safer land use practices. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The project will involve around 3,000 employees from the Newcastle works. The participants will be screened for melanoma and educated in how to prevent skin cancer. In 12 months' time, the group will be compared with their colleagues at the Port Kembla works. The study will assist in determining why Newcastle has a high incidence of melanoma.
It appears that shift work has something to do with it. In other words, employees have a tendency to work nights and then go fishing during the day and be exposed to fairly high doses of radiation. And I think probably the other large factor, as I'm informed by the melanoma unit, is that we have a high incidence of Anglo-Saxon population in the Hunter area.
And while this pilot program will focus on BHP employees, if successful, other industries will also be targeted. The 12-month project will cost around $50,000. The money was handed over this afternoon by Paul Jeans of the Roddenbar Products Division. It wasn't the only gift he gave. The Hunter Mission's youth camp also received $10,000.
It'll be used in part to refurbish an old school up on the Allen River at Allendale, and used for rehabilitation of young people who have a range of problems.
The 18-year-old had been shooting rapids yesterday afternoon with 7 army friends at a place on the Clarence River known as the Gorge. Police say the river has been freshened by recent storms and there are strong currents at many points. The missing soldier was sucked under the water as he tried to retrieve one of the tubes the group had been using. One of his friends attempted a rescue.
He noticed his friend was in difficulty. He attempted to rescue him. He did get a hand to him, but unfortunately he lost his grip, and shortly after the young fellow disappeared in the waters.
Police, state emergency service personnel and local volunteers joined the soldier's friends in an unsuccessful search of the river. Police divers are due to arrive at the scene tomorrow morning.
Now, I've called in the New South Wales Police divers, and they'll be here tomorrow to carry out the search through the deeper areas of the river.
Police today described the river in the area as dangerous and say there have been other drownings there in the past. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
With the help of the piping fanfare, Big Dog led the way to a crowd of eager children. The stars of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs are performing at the Newcastle Workers' Club to sell out audiences. A quick head count by King Ferdinand revealed an additional surprise. Eight dwarfs? Big Dog was lining up for an audition. Promoter of the Grimm Brothers fairy tale for more than 2 decades, Arthur Benton says he's considering the furry animal's potential on the stage.
Just checking him out with the dwarfs for talent, and I'm certain that he could possibly be engaged.
Do you think he might be a bit too big for the role, though?
Well, he'd be the biggest dwarf I've ever seen.
There are changes underway at the worksite. Employees in one of the largest industries in Australia are going back to school. Thanks to an innovative move by the Newcastle University, building workers now have a chance to measure up a degree of a different kind, an academic one. The university is offering an external studies building degree, so up to date that it's still being written. It provides full-time workers the chance to catch up on the changing technology in their industry.
The building industry is a sort of fast-paced industry. The technology, industrial relations, all sorts of activities creating pressures for business managers and a demand that managers be as well qualified as possible.
Workers of all ages from across Australia are taking part in the course, the recession forcing many to study.
The median age would be around about the 30s, about 30-year-olds who find that their careers have perhaps plateaued and that there's a need to upgrade to a degree qualification.
Another 50 applicants will be selected this year. Matthew White, NBN News.
The Windies arrived in town cool, calm and collected, confident after a morale-boosting win against Australia at the Gabba on Sunday.
I think we are beginning to hit our straps. The guys are getting into form, everybody, the batters as well as the bowlers, and I think we have done quite well in the past and certainly try and do our best in the future.
The tourists have named a 13-man squad, Richardson, Ambrose and Laura all being rested. The Australian country side was announced tonight, including 3 New South Welshmen, skipper Newcastle player Mark Curry. The Windies say they'll be giving the country boys a tough workout.
But I think it's a game that we'll take it as seriously as we can.
The action begins at Carl Oval tomorrow morning at 10. The visitors officially welcomed by local cricketing legend Dutchie Holland, the man who took 10 wickets against the Windies in the Sydney Test in 1984. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
These are the latest tyres. These are called. How do you mean? Well, they put it in prize now. Oh, there is trophies put up. Walk up quickly. Oh, if you've been knocked out or something,
Patrick Vincent turned his Citroën back to Tamanrasset after the rocks shook his...
Just after 9 this morning, this Toyota utility was travelling south along the Pacific Highway when it apparently crossed to the wrong side of the road and collided with a BMW sedan. The rescue helicopter was called to the crash scene about 8 kilometres north of Karua and airlifted 2 patients, one with head injuries, the other with abdominal wounds, to the John Hunter Hospital. They're in a satisfactory condition. 3 males with minor injuries were transported by ambulance to the Mater Hospital. While emergency personnel worked at the scene, traffic came to a halt in both directions for up to 4 kilometres. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
During the week, Toronto coach Mal Graham said he'd be happy if he kept Manly under 40 points, but he should have been more worried the temperature gauge would top that mark. The Sea Eagles paraded their new jumpers and new skipper Jeff Tuvey. Despite the heat, it was a fast-flowing game, Manly crossing early through new signing Cole Bentley. On-field refreshments were the order of the day, both teams taking care in the sweltering conditions. The Scorpions put up a brave fight, but they were clearly outclassed by the impressive Seagulls.
National Party leader Tim Fischer tried a new hat today with a whirlwind tour of the seat of Paterson in a Tiger Moth aircraft piloted by National Party candidate Gary Watson.
He has a right to argue the case for local government, and I would argue that local government, especially country local government, will be a very big winner under Fight Back.
The Nationals say coalition cuts in taxes on diesel will save $50 million for the New South Wales coal industry, a boost for the hunter. Latest polls rate the Fight Back package is on a dive. Mr Fischer says the seats of Paterson and Hunter will see more and more of his face, leading to the election probably in late March. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Near the wreck of the Cigna on Stockton Beach is a 500-hectare parcel of land marked for possible housing development.
The whole of the Stockton Bight is up for grabs if we don't state now what the community wants.
It was on this proposed development that Port Stephens Council contemplated banning domestic cats and dogs, a town of the future, home for up to 17,000 people. Locals are calling for a regional environmental study to protect the area from development. The greatest fear is Crown land on the beach will be used. Another site is about 2 kilometres inland and another to the south. Plans have been put on public display by the Port Stephens Council, but residents say it would be madness to set up a town on the sandy soils.
The drainage is not being adequately addressed. Whenever there is heavy rains, this whole area can be underwater.
And that would create major problems for sewerage. Council says extensive tests have shown the area is suitable for housing. It's seen as space for a growing population. If the project gets the go-ahead, blocks could be on sale by this time next year. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Patrolling Newcastle's beaches has been made easier with the introduction of a better communication system. Inspectors carry two-way radios which are linked to the public address system at the beach.
A beach inspector now can actually access the public address system from his walkie-talkie where he stands. So the response time is taken from probably 3 minutes back to a number of seconds.
And the inspectors welcome the new technology.
If we had a shark spotted out in the water, we could give the public a call across the PA system straight away, whereas before we'd have to run up and sound the shark alarm up in the surf float.
This new communication method will link all Newcastle beaches. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Early in the morning on the 8th of June 1942, a Japanese submarine, the I-24, surfaced off Newcastle and began shelling the city. Startled gun crews at Fort Scratchley returned fire. Enemy shells landed in the steelworks and city streets. The sub escaped unscathed, but only a week earlier it had launched deadly mini-submarines for suicide attacks on Sydney Harbour. Australian sailors died when their dormitory ship was hit. The Japanese crews were lost as well. A damaged midget submarine, retrieved after the raid and since restored, is the centrepiece of a commemorative exhibition at the Australian Maritime Museum in Sydney. 200,000 people have viewed the display. Japanese and Australian visitors have left small written tributes to those who died during the attack. At a ceremony today, the letters were read by Australian and Japanese veterans, speaking through interpreters.
I feel greatly moved when I think of those young people killed in the war. At the time, Australia treated these young people of the enemy country with respect. I have just realised what a wonderful thing this was. All countries have brave and courageous people. I pray for deeper relations between Japan and Australia.
The exhibition at Darling Harbour closes on Sunday.
This was a park, but about 3 months ago, council workers moved in and the families and children moved out.
It's not a park anymore and we want our park back. But what they're doing to our park is converting it to a dam.
The 100 by 40 metre retaining dam is designed to catch floodwater before it spills into streets below, especially Thomas Street. The residents say it's a waste of time.
Thomas Street has never flooded, ever. In the 22 years or 26 years that we've spoken to residences around here that they've lived in this area, we don't have a problem with flooding in Thomas Street.
A council spokesman refused to comment on the work. Locals are worried if the dam fills, the water will be a danger to children. They've petitioned council to stop the job. Ironically, an old council sign on the site warns vehicles to keep off the reserve and says people cannot pollute or rubbish the area. A public meeting will be held tonight in the Wallsend Community Hall. Peter Ryan, NBN News.